Today I've got a spooky Halloween themed lesson for you, and I'm looking at the track Night of the Vampire by 60s beat combo The Moontrekkers, and it's a fantastically creepy bit of surfy, twangy instrumental music produced by the great Joe Meek, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the track in just a moment. If you've not heard the original, it's well worth checking out. And what I want to do is begin by playing through the track. I'm trying to stick fairly closely to the original recording, but I've adapted a few things here and there just to make it work as a single guitar piece. I'm going to have some fun with some effect pedals as well that I've got down here, and I'll take you through all of the gear that I'm using in this video towards the end. So let's get started. And there we go. And apologies to those of you expecting to hear a version of the Rocky Erickson track of the same name. That would have made another fantastic Halloween special video. Maybe I will look at that track if I have time later this week, or otherwise I'll have to try and remember to do it next year. I'm not actually sure whether there's any connection between the Rocky Erickson track and this one. Certainly they sound nothing like one another, but maybe Rocky Erickson took some inspiration from this 60s original. I know that he was a big fan of Joe Meek, so that wouldn't surprise me. And as for the original recording, I couldn't find that much information about it. I'm assuming it was recorded in the early 1960s. I couldn't find an exact date, so I'm imagining 1960, 1961. And as I said, recorded by at Joe Meek's studio, produced by Joe Meek, and the band were kind of proteges, I suppose, of Joe Meek. Joe Meek being the sort of pioneering producer. He was one of the first people to use the recording studio as kind of a creative tool. You know, this was in the days when the recording studio was just a place where you went to have a a natural recording of a performance. He was actually overdubbing and using effects in a very creative way, before producers were doing that kind of thing, and he's still a massively inspirational figure. So let me take you through how to play the track. I'll take you through the various riffs, also talk a little bit about some of the effects that I'm using. Nothing too tricky to play here, just going to have a little bit of fun with it, I think. So let's get started. So I'm playing this one in the key of A minor. If you listen to the original recording, it's actually a little bit sharp, so somewhere in between A and A sharp. That's not something you particularly need to worry about, unless of course you're playing along to the original recording, in which case you'll need to retune your guitar or pitch shift the original recording in some kind of way. Now the first thing we hear is this little introduction. So that's just an A chord or an A power chord, so open 5th string, 2 and 2, and then I'm putting down my 2nd finger at the 3rd fret on the 5th string and just arpeggiating that little shape. Then double stops on the middle 2 strings, so 2nd fret and then 3rd fret and 2nd fret, and then we're just descending, and then the track starts properly and the rest of the band comes in. If you've got a guitar with a vibrato arm, you're going to want to be using that quite a lot throughout this tune, so whenever it sounds good, really. So on those sustained chords, giving everything a little bit of a wobble. So you've got a couple of choices with vibrato arm technique. You could just hold the bar for most of this piece, so you kind of just grab it with your pinky or your ring finger, and then you can play these melodies whilst giving everything a little bit of a wobble. Sometimes I will do that. Often I will just let the bar kind of hang down there and grab it when I need it. And I've got this slightly annoying vibrato arm that kind of swings like this and it makes a bit of a squeaky noise. I really need to get that fixed at some point, but until then I just have to kind of grab it when I need to use it. Moving on, next we've got the main riff of the tune, which sounds like this. When you first hear it, it's played with a bit of fuzz, which sounds great. So very simple to play. We just got open 5th string and 3rd fret. There's a quick open D string, and then you've got the 2nd fret on the A string and an open low E. And the whole tune has got a little bit of a swing to it. Da, 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 da. So that open 4th string note, you have to make sure you're swinging that. And I suppose this whole riff is, to me, it's implying a A minor to E kind of a sound. So you kind of got the root note there, A, the minor 3rd, it's kind of outlining that A minor sound, and then we've got kind of the 5th and the root of an E chord. So this whole tune really is, there's a little bridge section as well, but most of the tune is just A minor going to E. As we shall see, the melody fits those chord changes as well. So next we hear the main melodic theme of the piece. It goes like this. Really the whole piece is made up of variations on that basic melody. So to start with, you're playing it down quite low, in and around the first position on the guitar. So I'm hearing it like this. So it's really a scale sequence. Most of this piece is made up of melodies based on the A harmonic minor scale, which is this. Got A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp, that's the harmonic minor note, and then we're back to A again. Now you can kind of go down onto the low E string as well, so you've got a G sharp there, and then an F and an E. So you can think about that scale perhaps when you're learning this melody. So the melody starts like this, 2nd fret on the 4th string, and I'm not going to shout out every single note here. I think it's quite a simple melody. If you just listen to it, you should be able to pick up what's going on, but we're descending like this. it's a kind of a scale sequence really. We're mostly moving in thirds. There's that harmonic minor, that natural seventh, going all the way down to the low E string. Then we're kind of going up again and resting on this C note. So a good opportunity to add a bit of vibrato arm. And then we've got this. So it's a variation on the melody. The kind of second phrase, we're starting a bit higher. So second fret on the third string, and once again descending all the way down to the low E string, then climbing up again, and then ending on the open fifth string. So nothing too complicated there, just make sure you're playing it with a bit of commitment, a bit of attitude, so you want it to sound nice and twangy. So I'm picking fairly confidently, not too hard, but confidently, and maybe picking fairly close to the bridge for that added kind of twangy sound. So next the melody repeats, but we're playing it an octave higher, and I'm playing it in and around the fifth position. So once again, you might like to visualize or think about your A harmonic minor scale in this position. So A, B, C, D, E, F, G sharp and A, and then you can continue into the next octave as well. So we're starting here. So it's starting at the fifth fret on the second string, descending in this kind of sequence type way. Then we're going up. At the end of this phrase, I'm playing a little A minor triad shape, so just the fifth fret on the top three strings. And then the melody continues. Once again, finishing with that A minor triad or chord. It's kind of up to you. You could just play the triad shape or add in some lower notes in the chord if you wanted to. Next up, we've got a little bridge section. We're introducing some new chords, and those chords are F, G, and C. This is the part that I'm playing. So just playing really triad shapes here. So this is an F triad, frets 3, 2 and 1. And I'm playing the lowest couple of notes and then picking the highest note in that swung kind of rhythm. So down, up with the pick. And just taking that shape 2 frets higher for the G. And then we've got C. And we could just come down to a C chord here. What I've chosen to do is come up to this little C triad shape in the fifth position. So it's fret 7 on the A string, 5 and 5. So this is a first inversion C major triad. Similar kind of picking pattern. And then just descending on the fifth string. Next we've got the main melody. Again, it's exactly the same notes, I think, but it's articulated in a slightly different way, and we've got this quite heavy palm muting. So same melody. With the palm muting, you're going to want to just, it's resting the side of your hand on the strings. Here you want it to be quite an extreme effect, so I'm actually pressing fairly firmly with my hand on the strings and picking quite hard, and then you get the notes to kind of pop out. It's nice and percussive. So and then release the muting for those triads, and then Next up, we've got this little interlude, or maybe it's like a little solo, and what I'm playing is this. So on the original recording, this is clearly made up of different overdubs with different sounds. I think some of these ideas are played on the keyboard, so that the keyboard sound that you're hearing on this recording is very much a Joe Meek signature sound. I believe it's a clavier line, which is a kind of early synthesizer. You hear it on Telstar as well. What I've done with this arrangement is I've placed some of those keyboard ideas onto the guitar. So to kind of simulate some of these different overdubs and different sounds, I'm playing the same notes but on different strings, and then you get a slightly different kind of tone or timbre. And the notes are E, F, E, E flat and E. And I can play them on the second string. I could come down an octave, play those notes on the third string, or I could play them here on the fourth string, fifth string, and then down here in the open position. So that's all I'm doing there. I think for the last two variations on those notes, I'm turning on a fuzz pedal just for a slightly different sound. So if I put that together, I'm just ending with a bit of a slide up and down the fretboard. It's kind of emulating what you're hearing on the keyboard part on the original recording. Next, we've got the main melody. Again, that's played exactly the same as before. Then you're hearing the main melody played up 2 octaves. I'm not sure how this would have been achieved on the original recording, whether it's a keyboard sound, whether it's some kind of studio trickery, which wouldn't surprise me with Joe Meek. Maybe it's the guitar that's been recorded with the tape machine at a different speed and then sped up, so it sounds 2 octaves higher. But the way I've achieved that was to play the melody in exactly the same way, but I used a pitch shifter pedal to get that 2 octave up effect. I'm going to discuss the pedals that I'm using in just a moment towards the end of the video. And we're nearly there. There's one more bridge section which is played the same as before. And then at the end of the piece we've got the melody played once again down in the open position, in the first position. So I think that's the same as before. And then just at the very end, just repeating the last bit of the melody. And there's just a last little phrase which you can hear at the very end of the track. I'm playing it like this. So climbing up on the B string, and then little minor triad shape. So B minor, A minor, and then finishing on some kind of A minor chord. Let me take you through the gear that I'm using today, and part of the fun of making this video has been experimenting with quite a lot of pedals, trying to get some spooky sounds, trying to emulate a little bit some of those Joe Meek production touches. So I've got quite an extensive selection of pedals here. It's been nice to get a few pedals out. I think a lot of my recent videos I've been quite minimal on the pedal front, but I've kind of gone all out today. So let me take you through exactly what I'm using here. So my core sound is a Jazzmaster. This is a 65 reissue Jazzmaster. I believe that's going into my Fender Princeton that you can see behind me. I'm using a bit of overdrive from the J-Rocket Archer. There's a little bit of reverb coming from the amp, but my main reverb today is from the Surfy Bear reverb unit, and this is kind of my go-to reverb unit if I want that drippy, splashy kind of surf sound where you really want to make a feature out of the reverb. I mean, the reverb in the Princeton is great, but if you really want to make a feature of the reverb in that kind of surfy kind of a way, then this pedal is designed to give you that. So that sounds like this. Then I've got a few other toys. I was using my vibrato pedal quite a lot. So this is a Boss Wazacraft vibrato pedal. It's a brilliant pedal, and that seems to get close to some of the sounds that I'm hearing on the original recording. I'm not sure exactly how those sounds were achieved, but the vibrato pedal certainly seems to work well. So if I just switch that on, it sounds like this. Then what else have I got? I've got a delay pedal down here. This is the MXR carbon copy, and I think I had that on most of the time in my playthrough just for a bit of a slapback sound. So it's that. And I've actually got another delay pedal down here that I was using for that kind of glitchy sound at one point. This is a great trick that you can do with the Boss DD6 delay pedal. I'm not sure if any of the other models of Boss delay do this exact trick. It's why this particular model is quite sought after if you want those kind of crazy glitchy sounds. So what you have to do is you have to set it in hold mode, and then you momentarily stomp on the pedal, and it gives you that kind of stuttering glitchy sound. So you've got this kind of, and depending on how long you depress the pedal, you can get a very quick stutter. So, or if I hold it down a little bit longer, kind of longer repeat. So really love playing around with that. That works well on this tune, I think, because you've got that sustained note at the end of the phrase where you can just stomp on that pedal. I think it sounds really great. So. And when I was playing the melody 2 octaves higher, I was using my Digitech whammy pedal. And I've had this pedal for years. It's such a fun pedal to play around with. So I've just got it set on 2 octaves up, and just playing the melody in exactly the same way, but it's all going to sound 2 octaves higher. So we've got. And then you can just turn the pedal off for those triad hits. And I've got one further pedal down here, and that's a fuzz pedal, and this fuzz is made by a company called Noise Space Audio from Ukraine. I bought this off the internet a couple of years ago. It's a great pedal, and I'm trying to remember the pedal that it's based on. It's some kind of obscure 60s or 70s fuzz. I think something that Brian Eno was a fan of, so I had to buy this pedal. It does sound great. It's really versatile, but in particular it does those great kind of 60s and 70s quite nasty thin fuzz sounds. So that's what I was using just briefly on that little solo section. So and that's it for today's video. Tab and backing track will of course be up on the Patreon page. And if you're in the mood for more spookiness, then do check out the archive of previous Halloween special videos. Thanks very much for watching. See you next time.